All right. I'm here with Eddie Vernon, and Eddie and I have had so many conversations about all the many things unseen in practice, esoteric acupuncture, and so many things that I thought, hey, you know what? I want to record this and share this with other people that either experience this or interested in this or just want to learn a little bit more. One of the things that Eddie has talked to me about is this umbrella of transcendental acupuncture, what that is. And so I thought better than me trying to explain it, why not Eddie? So Eddie, thank you so much for hopping on this and being able to share this information. I know because I've worked with thousands of practitioners, so many of us are interested in this or already kind of delving in these realms. So tell me first what you mean when you say transcendental acupuncture.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for having me. It's cool to talk about this stuff. When I say transcendental acupuncture, I just mean all the effects people have during an acupuncture session besides just the physical. Of course, the acupuncture will help their pain go away or the muscles relax. It can help with all kinds of internal disorders, but people also have lots of these transcendental effects during their session. And then when I come take the needles out, for me, that's like one of the most fun and fascinating parts of acupuncture is just hearing those stories. So whenever I come in at the end of a treatment and I'm taking the needles out and someone says, you know, something really weird happened, you know, like get like happy because I want to, even though they're like kind of embarrassed to share it, I'm like excited because I know it's going to be something cool. So I guess transcendental, actually, I would say all acupuncture is transcendental because no matter what you're doing, you're affecting the mind, the body, the spirit, and you're all, you know, mostly you have a chance for someone to go into a slightly altered state or just a kind of a trance level and have those experiences. So some of the first things I noticed, you know, people might have shaking or twitching that happens during acupuncture. They might feel like their body's getting heavy or tired, or some people feel the opposite, like they're floating above the table or even leaving their body, which is even more cool. So when they say something weird happened, that could be one of them. And then sometimes people will see colors with their eyes closed, or they'll feel different energy around their body. And I feel like that is because you're going into a relaxation state, a slightly altered state. Some people would call it a hypnagogic state between awake and asleep. Stan Groff uses, I think he coined the term holotropic state, which means moving toward wholeness. And the idea with that was when you go into that altered state, whether it's through breath work or, you know, hypnosis, plant medicine, the things that are in your unconscious will kind of bubble up. And if they're ready to come out, you might experience that in that holotropic state, and that will help with your overall healing. So the acupuncture is helping with the pain, but it can also help, you know, the mind, body, spiritual healing too. That's my idea.
Okay, I love it. I also love that you said all acupuncture is really transcendental. However, we all know some patients experience some transcendental moments and others don't. Right. And so I have two-pronged question. I'll start with, do you try to invoke that in all your patients or just certain ones? And then do you use, the second question, part of the question is, if you do try to invoke a transcendental experience or a more enhanced one, since all acupuncture has the potential for that, are there specific points or adjunct modalities that you add to your session to guide somebody to that type of experience? So we'll start with the first part, which is, do you try to invoke that in everybody, or do you kind of pick and choose?
So for me, you know, I feel like that's part, you know, whether the patient is consciously thinking or not, I feel like almost everyone that comes through the door is looking for at least a part of that experience, whether it's because they're really stressed or maybe somebody in their family just passed, or I mean, especially today, there's like so much stress around the world. I think everybody, part of them wants that experience, but they might not, they might be coming for back pain or knee pain. And I really, when I started, I was a student of Dr. Richard Tom. So I only did balance method. I don't think I've ever needled a local point after school. You know, I only do distal needle acupuncture. And I was just like, that's all I did. And people have those experiences without doing anything extra. I think part of it, you know, just the setting is important, having a night, like a quiet room, you know, I put heat or biomats on the table. So just that setting with the needles can put someone in an altered state. And then the past maybe 3 years ago, I also took some classes with Dr. Mikio Sankey in esoteric acupuncture. So a lot of times, like if I was to just treat someone for back pain and they, you know, the first visit, they see colors or they have that experience, then I'll definitely do the esoteric next time. But I might add in, you know, of course I'll add in some points for the back pain, and I combine them. And I believe Dr. Sankey said that's fine with the esoteric, but I think it's fine. It seems to work. But I feel like almost everybody is looking for that, even if they don't say it. So I guess the answer is yes. I try to give everyone that experience. Some people feel it, some people don't. I'll talk about one of this is the other sign when someone's, that I notice in almost everybody is during acupuncture, they'll get like an itchy nose or tingling on their face. And this is what I think it is. I've heard other theories about why that happens, but my idea is that it's part of the microcosmic orbit, you know, or some people call it the small heavenly circuit, you know, the acupuncture meridian, the dew channel comes up the back and then down the front. And so when your body goes to that relaxation, recharging state, there's a flow that starts there. And usually the first place people feel it is like an itchy or tingling on their nose. And so I didn't used to say anything. And I remember there was one grumpy guy, and, you know, like the third time he's like, okay, so what's the deal with the itchy nose? It's like, why is my nose itching? So now I try, if I see that, I explain it, because sometimes as soon as you put the needles in, you know, they'll reach up and scratch their nose. And, you know, some people say, oh, it's just because I can't move my hands, my nose is going to itch, but it's much more. And so now I explain it with the patients. I'll say, okay, if you feel that, you can use it like biofeedback. You know, take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, try to relax your whole body, and it might move or go down or go somewhere else. And then it kind of becomes cool. You can watch that flow in your body. So the reason I say that is because I've had patients, you know, after like 4 visits, they're like, this isn't helping. It's not doing anything. But every visit, they're like, oh, they're all scratching their nose. And I know the energy's moving. I know something good is happening. But they might just not pick up on those little things, you know. They're not getting the effect they want maybe in their physical body, but something good is happening.
So when somebody has an itchy nose, you take it as a diagnostic tool that you have activated the microcosm, the heavenly orbit that
Right,
runs the
sometimes
dew
they call
and
it
ren.
small.
You feel like it's starting to move, the current is moving, and it's manifesting as an itchy nose. So that to you is a good sign.
Yeah, that's my thought. I've heard other people say it's got to do with the lung meridian and the chi starts in the lung channel, but I really like the microcosmic orbit idea, and it's easy to show people, you know, with the model. And I feel like definitely the energy is moving. You know, it could be the small heavenly circuit or the microcosmic orbit or something else, but it's definitely a good sign your body's going to that relaxation, recharging state. And it's kind of cool because, like I said, some patients, if they don't get the effects they want, at least you as a practitioner, you know, okay, something good happened during that treatment, and something positive happened, and you know you're making a difference. So and in general, everyone I've explained that to thinks it's pretty cool. Even the grumpy guy that was complaining about it. So
Super. I think that is super cool. That's why we're having this conversation and recording it, because you and I have had so many conversations like this without hitting record, so we could share this with other people. One of those conversations that we've had before we hit record was on half moons. And so I'd love for you to share that in terms of, you know, some people have half moons on some or all of their fingers. What might that indicate? One of your teachers shared with you some ancient wisdom around half moons and how you use them maybe to go further into a transcendental experience or back up, or just looking at somebody's half moons or lack thereof helps you ask different questions and just probe a little bit more. So can we talk about half moons?
yes, of course. So when we're saying half moons, most people have, I don't know if you can see on the camera, most people have a little half moon here on their fingernail. And some people have, a few of their fingers have it. Some people don't have any, and some people have all 10. So I heard this from one of my teachers, Dr. Lily Chang. She was the founder of the World Medicine Institute in Hawaii. So she's comes from that more of a Taoist tradition. And she said one day that the half moons are like the window to your soul. So if you have all 10, you might be, or you're probably a very spiritual person, or faith is a big part of your life, or maybe religious. It doesn't necessarily have to be religion, but just a spiritual side. Or if you don't have that in your life, you might not really feel truly happy or fulfilled until you get it. So it's kind of a cool theory, and I Googled it. I couldn't find it anywhere else. You know, I don't know. When you Google it, you can find the little things about like nutritional deficiencies, but I really couldn't find that anywhere else. But so I just kind of take note of it, and I watch different patients, and you know, I'll look at people's hands, and especially when you're needling the hands, you can kind of look. And then, so if I see all 10, I'll usually tell them, or I'll just tell them that idea. And most people, they can at least resonate with some of that. Like, oh yeah, you know, I'm an accountant, but I really have a spirituality is a big part of my life. Or they might say, well, I don't go to church anymore, but I love to go out in nature, and that's where I really connect with, you know, myself. And so I have found it to be true. And I'll tell you about one patient I had. He had these huge half moons, all 10. Sorry, I think. So he had these huge half moons on all 10 fingers. And so I was asking him, okay, so this guy had huge half moons, all 10 fingers, and we were doing the intake. It was the first time I saw him. And he said, you know, he had been in the Navy and he'd worked with explosive ordnance disposal and all these things. And I thought, well, it's not that spiritual, you know. And then he said, and then I got out of the Navy and I went to acupuncture school in California, and I spent a couple years there, but I wasn't really liking it. So then I moved to India and I meditated for 3 years. And the last 2 years, I've been living on this mountain in China with this Taoist teacher. And the only reason he even came back here was to have some surgery done on his shoulder. So he was like, I was like, after that, I was like, okay, this theory is valid. So, you know, I really, it's cool to see it. And so I'll tell people about it, and I'll just kind of notice, you know, I went to a Qigong retreat with Robert Pang, and it was one of the 2-week healer training. So it was more of a deep dive into Qigong. And that 2 weeks, like almost everybody had all 10 half moons. So it's really interesting. And before you get too excited though, if you have all 10, I also have seen that in addicts, like addiction. I worked in a Suboxone clinic, and a lot of the heroin addicts, and you know, they would have these big half moons. So, you know, could be because they're also reaching for that spirituality just in a different way. And then sometimes I've also seen shamanic practitioners and these amazing people that don't have any half moons. So if you don't have any, don't worry either, because
I
it's
know.
probably something great about that, you know. So it's kind of a cool thing just to look at. And then if I see it, I'll think, oh yeah, this person might respond well to esoteric acupuncture, or they might have an easier time getting to that state. Just anecdotal, but it's kind of cool to look at. And almost everyone I tell about it, oh, they like it. So, or they'll go home and to look at their wife. So, let me see your fingernails. So
You know what
it's
would
kind
be
of
fun
fun.
to do from here on out is like I studied with Giovanni, like many of us did, and
Uh-huh.
he did the tongue book. And I remember asking Giovanni, can somebody change the shape and appearance of their tongue? And he said, yes. Ooh, look at us. He said that as you work with somebody, you will see their tongue change. And in fact, in his tongue book, one of the editions of it, it shows somebody's tongue, deep crack. And then after 3 years of treatment, the crack is barely there. So you can have these physiological effects and make changes in that regard to the body. It'd be interesting to see, you have somebody come in, if this is something we write down in our diagnosis and in our kind of like original intake with somebody, or even take photos, and we really work with them to work mind, body, spirit, get their health in order, and then just get them really aligned with their heart and on their calling and enjoy in life. Wouldn't it be interesting to see, like, you work with somebody 3 years, and when you first start seeing them, they have like maybe 1 half moon or 2. And then after 3 years of working together, all these half moons come out. And it's like, whoa, like that's another objective measurement tool, or could be. I think we're going to have to follow this up now that we're both kind of putting this on our radar to kind of watch it. I know for myself, you know, when you and I talked about this, I immediately looked at my own half moons, you know, and I have like about, I don't know, 5 or 6 of my fingers have it. So it means I have 4, and I'm kind of like, well, I'm pretty spiritual, I'm pretty deep, but there are areas of my life where I'm still not 100% fulfilled. And I think maybe that's what it is. So I'm going to be watching myself, you know, in those areas, and to see if my half moons come out, or, you know, I love it though. I mean, all
If
this
you
stuff
push
is
the
so fun.
cuticle up.
Yeah, oh, I have done that, right? Well, it's there. I know it's there, you know. I mean, I love acupuncture. One of the reasons why I've always loved it and was drawn to it back in the 90s when I studied it was like, we become mini detectives. Like, I'm on the case, you know, I got to figure out why there's this disharmony in the body. And I always feel that it isn't what's in front, just like a good movie. It's not the obvious. It's always something that is obscure, and that, you know, when you're the one that finds it, that's what's so fulfilling, is like, you're the one that finds it, right? Because it's so not obvious to everybody else, but you can find it. And this is just another tool, that, and, you know, some of these things. So can you tell more about your experiences with adding modalities like the esoteric? I know you do healing events where you use sound and vibration. Can you share more of your experience of, as you've added more of those modalities that would enhance a transcendental experience with acupuncture? What's that been like for you? And what are some of the specific adjunct modalities that you add to your sessions to invoke an experience like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's another really cool thing as a practitioner you can do is combine different things. And actually, I thought of the term acupuncture stacking after I watched, he did a podcast, I think with Andy Rosenfarber, he's talking about stacking different techniques. And I thought that's kind of like the same thing. You can do acupuncture and then stack that with sound healing and then crystals or infrared or something. And so the effects of those two combined together are greater than if you were to do them separately. So, you know, one of the first ones I did was acupuncture with drumming. I was doing acupuncture for a friend in her house. So we put the needles in, she was laying on the couch, and there was a drum sitting there, like a frame drum. And I thought, well, this would be kind of cool to drum over top of her. So I started doing it, and she was like, oh my God, I can feel all the needles vibrating. And she felt like so much more than just with the needles. So I was like, well, that's a really cool way to, you know, get the energy moving, or to add a little extra to the acupuncture. That's, I mean, obviously you could do e-stim, but it's a little more natural way to use the sound. And so I started doing that every once in a while, you know, people that were open. I mean, I didn't do it with everyone walking in the door, but people who were open to new things, I would say, oh, you know, if you want to try this, and almost everyone will feel that one. And so it's cool because some people, you know, as we said, they don't really feel the effects of the acupuncture. But if you add the drum, I mean, everyone can feel the physical effects of the drum. So they will, I mean, everyone I've done it to thinks it's awesome. So maybe I haven't had anyone not like it, but I don't do it with everybody. And then so I also started using a gong. I have this huge 40-inch gong, and that alone too, even if you do the gong without acupuncture, you feel the vibrations. That will put your body in an altered state, just the sound alone. But if you do it needles plus the gong, it's incredible, you know. And even like I've had someone, you know, people with like, you know, numbness in their legs, they can't feel anything, and I start playing the gong and they'll feel their legs again. Yeah, so it can be really powerful. So sound. I also like recently started using crystals with acupuncture, and so I have these. Some of the ones I use, you could use any kind of gemstone or anything, but I have these little clear quartz Star of David. They're cut in kind of like a Star of David shape, and this was designed by Marcel Vogel, who was a big crystal guy. And so I've actually got 3 of them. I have a large, a medium, and a small, and I'll put them on the navel, the heart, and the third eye. And it's, you know, some people don't notice anything, but other people, they're like, wow, whatever you did was really different. And then that if you want to add to the crystals, I started using these sound healing. So this is a tuning fork. I got this from Jonathan Goldman, and it's the idea is that it resonates with quartz crystal. So you can play the tuning fork near the crystal, and it helps to resonate the crystal. So I just do that. You know, I'll put the crystal on and then hold the tuning fork over, and people, you know, they'll see colors, and it's like adds another level. So it's like acupuncture stacking needles, sound, crystals, and probably you could do all kinds of other cool things, but definitely it will add something to the treatment.
You have a signature treatment that is more spiritually based and focused that you offer, right?
Yeah,
so I think on certain days when you do more of these Wednesdays, what's the name of that again? I know you have a couple of names. One's like an angel healing.
So yeah, so the one that combines those, I call a spiritual acupuncture experience. And I was a little hesitant to call it that because I thought, you know, spiritual, some people, I don't know, for whatever reason, they might be turned off by it. But I had a guy, he was really like a conservative, kind of conservative Christian. And I almost didn't want him to see it on the menu because he thought, you know, I didn't know what he would think. And then one day he's like, oh, what's the spiritual acupuncture experience? I want to do that. And so I was like, oh man, this is like the last person I want to explain that to. But it was amazing. Like he came in, I did the drumming. I did esoteric acupuncture, the face down. I did drumming over his back. He had this amazing journey, you know, where he went and met his ancestors, and then I, you know, flipped him over to the front and played the gong. And I mean, he was like so happy at the end because he had this like amazing, like really 2-part journey where, you know, he left with all kinds of things. I don't even know the full story of it, but he had a great experience. But it's funny because I almost didn't call it spiritual acupuncture because of that. But then that was what drew that treatment to him. And then he had a great experience. So
yeah, I love that. I know in my practice, I use source. God is in my treatment room. I have no problem saying it. Spiritual tools like oracle cards and intuition. And for a few years, I kind of held some of it back, just like you, for some of the patients, but it would like ooze out of me, or it was more energy to hold it back than it was just to be all in on it. And I feel like for myself, and I coach this in a lot of my clients on my coaching business, when they say, I don't know what to do, I'm going to do it, but I don't want to scare people away. I just tell them to go all in on it because of that. It's like, you just never judge a book by its cover. You just never know. You be you, and then your people will be attracted to you. We don't try to go against our grain. I don't think that is energy well served. Like trying to convince somebody that spiritual acupuncture is real. It's more like you put it out there, and you're the big light, and people will be attracted to you. It's like lettuce with a turtle. You don't force feed turtles, you don't even hand feed them. You put the lettuce down and they'll come to it. And so I love that. I love that you made that point, because I personally experienced that, where again, too much energy to hold that stuff back, or have two different treatment styles. It's like you're one person with your family and another person with your friends. It's better just to be you all around, everywhere you go. And if you are spiritual and you really just feel like you want to offer that in your sessions, just offer it in your sessions.
Yeah, totally.
Just offer it in the sessions. Yeah. God is working through you. That's my belief. And so let it come through, and then the right people will come to you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I would say that, there's always a part of that for anyone that comes. They're going to get some spiritual transcendental acupuncture. I might not play the drum or the gong, but for a while I had that 40-inch gong in one of the treatment rooms, and some people will come in and they don't even mention it, and other people would be like, what's that, and then so those people I would play for them, and then the same thing, I have some different crystal clusters. So I have this big guy, and so I have it in the treatment room. Some people don't even notice it, and other people walk in the room and they're like, oh my God, what is that? So that's like a good opening into talking about it. But, if they don't say anything, or if they don't notice it, then we don't talk about it. But so don't have to push it on them. But having those things around kind of gives an opening when someone wants to go that way, or, talk more about different types of healing. I work a lot with, I get a lot of referrals from the VA. So I work with a lot of the veterans that are super conservative, but, I had a patient, he's like retired Marine Corps colonel, 30 years in the Marine Corps. And the first time he's like, oh, so I'm totally open to talking about chakras, this, and he was really open. But even sometimes when they're not, they seem really conservative, but there's a very spiritual side just under the surface. So it's really, I think it's just what you said, just being comfortable with it, and people will want to go there and talk about it and ask questions. So,
and speaking of the VA, I know you do events. So one of the things is you started doing small kind of group healing of this nature, the spiritual healing, kind of like a group event in your office. That's been really fun for you. But you're also serving veterans by holding these large events. You have one coming up in June, where you're going to have up to 50 or more vets come in, and you're doing sound healing with them in a large room. Tell me a little bit about how that works.
Yeah. Well, so that, like you said, I've done more like smaller stuff, because I have a room here in my clinic, but it can fit maybe 8 people comfortably. So I've done smaller groups, and it's really fun. It's actually just like a fun part of the day, and people love it, And actually, one reason I like doing that is because if you do like a group and you lead them through breath work and then sound healing, almost all those people have a transcendental experience, and that's with no acupuncture. So it's kind of cool, because in a day like a full day of acupuncture, there might be like a handful in there that have some really cool things happen. But when you do those group healings, it's almost like, I don't want to say 100%, but like 90% have these really amazing experiences. So I wanted to be able to give that, offer that to the military and veteran community in this area. So I was able to get actually it's a really large room at the library, and I planned 50 people, but I think it could be more. So I'm a little nervous about that. I'm not sure how big the group will be, but so I'm going to take my, gong, and I have some plate bells, all this cool stuff over there, and just do the sound healing for the veterans. But when I tell people about it, usually what they say is, "Oh, I've always wanted to try that," or that I have a flyer out now at the front of the office, and people are like really interested. And a lot of times, like you said, it's not the people you would expect to be interested in it. So it's kind of cool if you put stuff out there, see who shows up. And so right now there's, it's next month. I think I have 22 people signed up, but I feel like it's gonna get pretty full. So,
yeah, because you
so
still
it'll
have
be
another
cool.
month to market it. I
Yeah,
mean, there's another month for more people to come in, and
yeah.
I mean, it's just, I love it. I love it. I remember another thing that you shared with me is that some of your patients have reported that when you have kind of crafted or directed in a treatment experience to be more transcendental, they'll say things to you like, wow, that was very similar to psychedelics without taking psychedelics, which to me, I think is amazing, because I do believe and support the power of psychedelics in their healing. But what if you could get that from just breath work or acupuncture? Or, I mean, that's pretty powerful, not having to take any substance and being able to tap into those parts of our body or have those neural connections that usually require an external substance like a psychedelic. And then we can do that with just directing chi and blood with a needle or breath work. So you've had several of those experiences with your patients, right? Where they report that.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I think you can look at it two ways. You can look at it, one is that you can definitely go to that state without taking anything, ingesting anything, with acupuncture or breath work. I mean, and that's really the whole thing with holotropic breath work. That was, or one type of breath work that's Stan Grof taught, because he couldn't use psychedelics anymore. So then they started doing it with breath work. But there's also so it's true. I think acupuncture, sound, breath work will take you to that state without taking anything. I think there may be something to, I mean, I have a lot of people that they'll see colors, or they go to total psychedelic state and they'll say, oh, I haven't had that experience since the 60s, or taking mushrooms or LSD. And I wonder two things. Is it, number one, maybe they recognize that feeling of going to that state more because they've had it, or number two, maybe those the spirit of that plant or mushroom is still with them, and then it's triggered by the acupuncture or the sound, and they have that experience, or maybe they're just someone who's more likely to enter into that state. So it doesn't necessarily matter. It could be all of the above, but definitely, I mean, you can get there without with just those modalities. And I mean, I have a woman that used to come, and she said, this is like doing mushrooms, but I feel good. I like, at the end, I'm not like, I don't have any kind of hangover or anything, I didn't puke or, so she was like, everybody should be doing this. This is like, you get all the good effects, but not the bad. So that was kind of cool. And I had actually one of the breathwork plus sound healing. One of the people said that they had an experience with like dancing with ayahuasca, which they hadn't even done ayahuasca. So you can get to that state. However, you definitely, yeah.
And you've done a lot. Like, one of the things I wanted to ask you for people watching is, like, if they want to start offering these things or enhancing a transcendental experience, offering adjunctive modalities, the best place for them to start would be doing work on themselves, right? Because I know you've traveled a lot. You've already dropped a lot of people, so you're versed in this, like Stan Grof and all these different teachers, esoteric acupuncture, Mikio Senki. Like, I remember the first time I'm definitely trained in esoteric, and I've gone and received treatments from Dr. Senki. And I remember I drove up to LA. I had a headache on this side of my head, and this shoulder hurt. And I walked into his treatment room, and from 20 feet away, he goes, "Oh, hi, East," because he remembered me from my class. I took classes from him. He goes, "Oh, I can see you have a headache right there, and your shoulder hurts. Lay on the table." I'm like, you know, and I also know Dr. Sankey has done a lot of work on himself. He meditates, breath work, eats clean. So I think it's important to say, anybody that wants to dabble more here, offer this more, or go deeper into it, it starts with you. Like, you are part of the treatment. The energy we bring in, if we do a lot of work on ourselves, then we're like a really fine-tuned needle, just our energy in the room with the experience. That's part of it. We can direct somebody into a transcendental state, just holding that space within ourselves, and it emanates out of us. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, totally. And in different ways too. Like I actually never studied holotropic breathwork because I got into it during COVID, and I couldn't find they weren't teaching the workshops anywhere, and I couldn't find, they don't do, or they didn't used to do any virtual. There might be some now. So I actually never studied, I just read about it. I've done breathwork training with David Elliott, and one thing he says is you can only take someone as deep as you've gone yourself. So if you haven't gone very deep, then you probably, the people that you're holding space for, it will be more superficial too. So definitely that's important. But the other really thing that motivates me to go to different trainings and workshops is I went to one of the first times I noticed this was I went to a week-long Qigong with Robert Pang, and I came back, and like the first day back, like everybody was seeing colors and like flying over here, and I was like, I'm doing this, and they would say, "What did you do different today?" And I'm thinking to myself, I did the same thing as a week ago. The only thing was changed was like having that week experience, you know, in that Chi field with Robert, and doing the, you know, getting my own energy moving. And I wasn't intentionally trying to do anything energetically with anybody. It just happened. I did one time I did a weekend class on the microcosmic orbit, you know, where you circulate the energy. And then I remember the first day back, this guy's like, I felt like I was just like somersaulting like forward through the whole treatment. So anything you do on yourself, people feel. And also it will help if you've gone deeper, other people can go deeper too, and you're, you know, when you're holding space for them. So it's like
I love it.
multiple ways that it will benefit you to do the self-work. And then I think even, you know, the esoteric acupuncture, Dr. Sankey only taught that live because he said, you know, the big part of it was when you're in the workshop, we would do the treatments on each other, and you get like a download of the, you know, that acupuncture, you know, those codes into your body. And so to get that, you have to go get the esoteric acupuncture somewhere, you know. So it's kind of sad that a lot of those aren't offered anymore, but I think we're coming back to doing some more in-person stuff. So
we are. And on that note, you plan on going out and about and holding large events in the next few years. So anybody watching this might look for you, eddievernon.com, and see where you're holding an event anytime soon.
Yeah, definitely. I have some coming up here in Virginia, Fredericksburg, Virginia. But yeah, as we get more back into the normal everyday world, I think we can be cool to do some big events in different areas of the country. And because actually, I think most acupuncturists already know all this stuff, but maybe we don't talk about it. I see like more and more they're making acupuncture more scientific. So we say that Qi is equal to oxygen, you know, and it's true. It can be very scientific, and you can explain things with endorphins and all this. But there's also a part that I find fulfilling when you see people have these more spiritual moments. You know, I had a patient, I came back in the room, and he said he felt his girlfriend had recently died in a car accident, and he felt her holding his hand while he was there. You know, so you can't really explain that with oxygen or endorphins.
No. You know, I taught at the school, I still do, but Pacific College of Health and Science, it was PCOM, but for years we'd have guest speakers come in, and whenever we had a spiritual based speaker come in, it was standing room only. And I remember telling the administration, we need to have more of these speakers come in. Like Miki Yosenki came several times and spoke at the school, and people were standing outside the hallways listening. There was no room in his rooms. And it was funny, the admin is like, no, we need more Western. No, we can't keep promoting the spiritual stuff. But I'm telling you, I agree with you that the majority of the acupuncturists really are interested in this and want to explore it further. They're observing it. Many people watching this may be observing this in their own offices and treatment rooms, but they just don't even know how to make sense of it because their school was maybe more Western focused, or, you know, kind of kept that away from them. So I hope that this talk has encouraged people to give themselves permission to play in these realms, to offer these realms, to become curious of what else is occurring that we can't see within a treatment experience using acupuncture. And what you're calling transcendental acupuncture is real. It's there. We maybe don't see it. Don't even know if you feel it in the pulse. We might be able to measure it by the half moons. I don't know. But one of the reasons why I wanted to record this with you is because we have so much fun talking about this stuff. And I said, we're not the only ones. I'm sure of it. So let's record ourselves and put it up on YouTube and, you know, get it out there and let other people know that they're not alone either, that we love this stuff, and it's real and it's cool to talk about. And it's one of the reasons why I love our medicine. I don't hear a lot of Western MDs having these conversations.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, there's this big debate across, well, I don't know if it's a debate or this argument between dry needling and acupuncture scope of practice. And in Virginia, they're doing dry needling. I don't think we can stop them, but it doesn't really concern me too much because number one, there's so many people and not enough acupuncturists. And number two, people that are getting dry needling are not going to have these experiences. I mean, I guess they could, but it's usually, you know, more short and stimulating, and they're not going to have that relaxation, and they're not going to have those transcendental experiences. So there's no way that dry needling can do what we can do with acupuncture, you know, in that realm. And I, like you said, I think more acupuncturists and different practitioners are wanting to talk about it and do it, but the public has changed too, because I mean, 10 years ago, if you said chakra, people's eyes would kind of roll over, but now they're coming in like talking about it. It's really a big shift in I think like the last 5 or 10 years. So it's like there's no reason to not talk about it now.
I agree. I think it's just going to be even more mainstream. People are going to come in asking for it, right? Like, can you add some spirituality to my treatment today?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we covered a lot. We might have to do this again and talk more, you know, about more observations and things. Is there anything else that you want to share with other practitioners out there?
Yeah, there's a lot of other things, a lot of other stories we could talk about, but I guess just be open to whatever you see happening, because all these things that we talked about are happening in acupuncture clinics everywhere, you know, but maybe the patient doesn't tell you about it, or maybe you just don't notice it. But I know other practitioners notice it and talk about it, but we can talk about it more. So
yes, I would love it. All right, until we do talk about it more, well, you and I will be in touch. We'll keep the juicy conversation. If anybody wants to find you, your website is, I know you have eddievernon.com, and you also have Central Virginia Wellness.
Virginia-wellness.com, Central Virginia Wellness Institute. Yeah.
And I'm drreese.com, all spelled out. All right, buddy.
Thank you, East.
Great talking with you. This was so awesome, and we'll have more.
Okay, thank you. Bye.